Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink, it is time for some PathOfExile discussion. Today I wanted to discuss the Necro Settlers event, the event that's going on at the moment that has been a really wild ride. There's been an event that on the PathOfExile subreddit has been extremely badly received, but it does seem to have a significant number of people playing it. There are 17,277 people in the main version of Necro Settlers, so this is with neither the hardcore nor the solo self-found rule set in play, that are on level 90 or higher characters. By comparison, it's kind of hard to work out how many people were at that level in Settlers on day 7. I feel like it was a little bit more than 100,000, so probably about 1/6 of that size of the player base. However, at the same time, a lot of people tried this and didn't like the low-level experience at all, and they bounced from it. They decided the event simply wasn't for them. What I wanted to do is give you a bit of a heads up on how it's working, everything we've been able to work out so far, and also talk about some of the peculiarities of this event. Because I will say that a lot of traditional currency generation strategies in softcore trade leagues have been turned on their head by this event. Especially because of good old manifested wealth, which is one of those things that was extremely explosive in generating wealth early and in the middle of your progression. But then once you start getting to the point that you've got the choice between running tier 17 maps or doing a manifested wealth map, you tend to want to stick in tier 17s instead. So the purpose that this is serving is transforming the economy by just causing an ungodly amount of extra Chaos Orbs to enter the economy. But at the same time, it's dumping them in the hands of people who are not at the deepest of endgame content. People who are at the deepest endgame content aren't benefiting from this because they're just simply not interested in it. They're instead going and farming other content instead and leaving these ones to people who are catching up. So that's been one factor. The other thing that's been crazy has just been how swingy prices have been. In a lot of ways, this league has been an item flipper's paradise. There have been certain lantern mods that have resulted in massive buy-ups of various consumables. Not people looking to hoard them to stockpile, but people looking to buy them for immediate use. A couple of hours before I got up this morning, this was sent to me on Discord. This was the most powerful lantern modifier combination we've seen yet, where you had strongest monster in pack gets drop jewelry, has a 50% chance to be converted to a divine orb, the best of the reward modifiers as far as we know that exists, and it could be shifted to a pack that had 2 extra monsters that were both unique. People who brainstormed quickly about this came to the conclusion that Titanic Scarabs would be incredible with this combination. So what did they do? They went to Faustus and they bought every Titanic Scarab they could get their hand on, not to stockpile and resell to others later, but just for their own immediate use. And that meant that they were buying them at ridiculously high prices, because when the buyer isn't price sensitive at all, and there's a time limit on the demand, the seller can charge pretty much whatever they want. This happened with a number of other Scarabs as well. For example, Ambush Scarabs. POE Ninja says they're 10 Chaos at the moment. They are not 10 Chaos at the moment. I put up a whole bunch of them for sale last night before I went to bed for 30 Chaos. Woke up this morning, every single one of them had sold. I also had put up a buy order to buy a bunch of them at 13 Chaos, and that order had also filled. Basically, prices are going up and down pretty crazily, and the Chaos Orb is pretty much worthless because of this tumbling wealth mechanic. Let's start with manifested wealth, which people are calling Tumblers. These are currency orbs that are alive, they have no ability to attack you, and they replace a type of monsters in your maps. When you get near them, they run away from you. They will continue to run away from you or roll away from you, and they're not averse to rolling many screens away from you if they can't get away from you quickly. So you want to kill these things quickly, otherwise they become a nightmare to chase down. When you kill them, most of the time they will turn into a Chaos Orb. Sometimes they're available along, and other times, much more rarely, they're an Exalted Orb. When you kill them, they drop the currency orb that they were on the ground. Veteran players who have got level 95 plus characters that are tier 17 capable, they're just completely disregarding this when it comes up. The people who are running this and really grinding it are the people who are trying to break into the league to get the gear that they need in order to start doing harder content. These events are not particularly rare, and they're usually available at least on one map every couple of hours, probably a little bit more than that. The Divine Orb ones are much rarer. We'll come to maximizing those in a sec. Now we need to quickly return to Granny Games' original announcement here. They said the mods are the same for all players and rotate once per hour in every area, including maps. What they didn't say was all of the buts that apply to this. Maps are considered to be the same if they are the same tier and they have the same monster packs present in them. However, there are a whole number of modifiers that can roll on maps that change what packs will exist there. The Skeletal mod, the Capricious mod, the Slithering mod, the Undead mod, Eminent, Feral, Demonic, Bipedal, Solar, Lunar, Haunting, Feasting, Multifarious, Abhorrent. Probably more of them as well. These are just the ones that are in one particular mod group. These mods will change what the map is considered to be. Now, I want to give you the rule of thumb that most of us are using at the moment. This is not 100% correct, but it's very close to correct. And that is that if the map modifier has the word inhabited in it, they're in one group. If it has the word contains, then they're in a different group. And if it has the words increased monster variety in it, then they're in a third group. If it has none of these, they're what's termed no pop mod maps. Each of these 4 categories of maps will have different results. It's just treated as a different map. So if I've got a Basilica T9 with no pop mods on it, you've got one that has the Multifarious mod on it, then they're going to have different modifiers to each other. If you then apply an alteration orb to yours and change it so that it loses Multifarious and it doesn't pick up pop mods on it, then you put that into the map device, you will get the same lantern that I get. But if you were to have instead put it in there and it became area contains Cultists of Kitava, maybe that's an area is inhabited by Cultists of Kitava, I can never remember all of these, then that would be another set of mods entirely. This is the biggest complexity. The second biggest complexity is that different tiers are different to each other. If I have a tier 9 Basilica with no pop mods, you have a tier 12 Basilica with no pop mods, we're going to see different lanterns to each other. No way to convert one into the other. Another person might have a tier 16 Basilica, they're going to see a different set of modifiers entirely again. So what this means is that if you find a particularly good combination of mods on a map and you want to communicate that to other players, what you want to do is communicate the map and tile set, so Basilica, the tier 12, and then the pop mods that apply. This might be Lunaris Fanatics, or you might say instead Cultists of Kitava, or you might say instead Increased Monster Variety, or you might say no pop mods. Then you can communicate with other players what those modifiers are. In terms of where you might want to do this, one place you can do this is in my global channel 16807, but honestly, probably the best of them is in the Discord that is run by Magic Find streamer Fubgun. Fubgun has been doing a huge amount of playing around with this mechanic as well, and he has a Discord community that's a bit more able to handle all the infrastructure necessary to set up some sort of widespread reporting event. So that's where I'm going to recommend that you go if you want more information on what modifiers are present in any particular hour. And remember that if it's 2 or 3 past the hour, very, very little is known. Later in the hour, you've got less time to exploit anything good that shows up, but there's also going to be more of it that is known. Let's talk quickly about these divine modifiers. These seem only to show up in high tier maps. They're pretty rare. There's often none of them available, or at least if there are any available, they're just not being explored by players. And they're at their best when they're in a map that has additional monsters added, and those monsters have a known rarity. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can take advantage of these known extra monsters. The key thing is it's only the strongest monster in the pack that gets this drop jewelry has 50% chance to be converted to a divine orb, and there's not really any realistic ways to bias the drops towards jewelry. So you're going to have to put up with the fact that most of the items that get dropped here are going to either be weapons or armor, or sometimes they'll be maps, sometimes they'll be currency, sometimes they'll be quality modifying currency. All of those are pretty common item classes. All of them will be disappointments. But the ones that drop as jewelry, they will be the best things here, and it's only the strongest monster in the pack that gets this conversion. So you want to add loot to the strongest monster. Some of the ways that you can do this, and this is not an authoritative and absolute list, if it is a rare monster that's the strongest monster in a pack, Horned Scarab of Nemeses will add 2 additional modifiers to it. 2 additional modifiers is quite a bit of extra loot. Alternately, if it is a unique monster like Kadoka and Kadaka, then Titanic Scarabs, specifically Titanic Scarab Classic and the Titanic Scarab of Legend, both of these will be able to juice the amount of loot that you get there. You can only use 3 in total, 2 Titanic Scarab of Legend and 1 Titanic Scarab, so in that case you'll need to find other Scarabs to fill it out. Likewise, if you go with the Horned Scarab of Nemeses, you can only use 1 of those. The next thing you can do is increase the amount of packs that are present on the map. The best solution for this is the Ambush Scarab. Ouch at the prices on these, they're definitely not 10 chaos. Other alternatives are just simply ambush on the map device, or you can use Domination Scarab to add shrines, or you can just forgo that and just run more maps and run them faster. All of these are options. The next thing that you're probably thinking is that you probably don't have a large number of specific tile sets of specific maps all the time. For that, the solution is Cartography Scarab of the Multitude, and this one also is not very cheap for very good reason. What Cartography Scarab of the Multitude lets you do is very quickly produce a decent number of any particular map at any particular voidstone count once you determine that this is a worthwhile thing to do. For example, if you get a call out that Grotto in tier 14 is particularly lucrative in an hour, you can remove 3 voidstones from your atlas, making Grotto tier 14, and then you can set up your favorite maps to 12 times favorite Grotto, or less than 12 times if you don't have all 12 unlocked like most of us don't, and then run a couple of Cartography Scarabs of the Multitude. Carto Scarab of the Multitude does 2 things. It adds a lot of packs of tier 17 exclusive monsters to the map. They will not get any lantern mods, but they will be inherently quite dangerous and drop a lot more loot than normal monsters. But on top of that, those monsters will have a very strong bias towards dropping additional maps. Now, in normal trade leagues, people tend to use this in conjunction with Cartography Scarab of Corruption in order to generate 8 modifier maps. That is a bit less the thing you want to do here because of everything we were talking about earlier about population modifiers. You can't modify a Grotto map tier 14 to get rid of a population modifier on it. Well, technically you can with a Tainted Chaos Orb, or at least I think they can apply to maps, but it's not generally something you want to do. Ultimately, you want uncorrupted maps in this league most of the time, and so I would say running Cartography Scarab of the Multitude is a good way to quickly manufacture a bunch of maps once you determine you want them, and this is especially good if you're playing in a group where one person can keep doing this while the rest of the group go and farm whatever map it is that has a particularly desirable reward on it. Fair warning, these two are also not 10 Chaos, like POE Ninja says they are. The next thing about the Lantern of Aramor is what to look for when there is no Divine Orb mechanic up. Now, this has been a really strange league in terms of prices. Divine Orbs to Chaos Orbs, the gulf between them is enormous. This is an understatement. They're actually closer to 420 at the time I'm recording this video. Who knows, by the time I finish this video, maybe they'll be 370, maybe they'll be 470. They could go either way. It all depends what's on the Lantern while I'm not in game. However, what's not unusual this league is the ratio between Divine Orbs and other currencies. Divine Orbs to Fusing Orbs, Divine Orbs to Glassblowers Baubles. All of these are pretty normal. So let's talk about the currencies that you want to look for on the Lantern. 4% chance to drop an additional Glassblowers Bauble. This is phenomenal. 4% chance to drop a Gemcutter's Prism. Again, this one will have you rolling in it, especially if you're just getting started and you need yourself a bit of a currency kickstart in order to feel strong enough to tackle more difficult content. 4% chance to drop an Orb of Horizons is pretty juicy, and whilst it's worse than all of those, 4% chance to drop an Orb of Fusing is also something that's welcome, especially in this league where a lot of people are starting to price items in either alterations or fusings because they have lost confidence in the future of the Chaos Orb's value. Finally, what if you're interested in mostly disregarding the Lantern of Aramor? As always in a trade league, there are people who want items that come from Heist. There are people who want good rare items that come from ROG. And when I say ROG here, I mean both ROG through Expedition and also ROG through the Recombination. If you're particularly good at one of these mechanics, or you know a little bit about it, or even you're not good at it yet, but you're willing to learn, then you'll find there's a lot of currency to be made by mass-producing gear that other players want. Additionally, Delve is particularly good in this because dense fossils are in huge demand. We are looking at a meta where 24% of high-level players have elected to play the Trickster Ascendancy, and amongst those Tricksters, 85% of them are using a rare body armor. Of the rest, most of them are using the Restless Ward, with some electing to use Replica Hyrizaya, Calm's Heart, Shroud of the Lightless, and a few other things. But let's be real about it. It's necrotic armors that are being used by most of them, some coming out of the Recombinator, those then need to be 6-linked, some coming from divination cards, those come out 6-linked, but then they need to be crafted with dense fossils, and others coming about from very lucky 29 quality drops, just like my group had one of on day 2 of this event. All of these are different ways that you can get a really good armor for your Trickster, but it's something that needs to be crafted, and there's certainly a market for people who are willing to craft those items. Anyways, my thoughts on this event. This event is something that is very much a risk-reward league that was marketed as not being a risk-reward league, but just being a mild rewards on top of the base game. And this is the reason that a lot of people tried it and bounced early, disappointed with the event. It's been a lot of fun, but it's not for everyone. If it sounds interesting, and if you're interested in just trying out something that's a bit different and weird, then give it a go. If it's not for you, remember, Settlers is still going, or alternately, take a break until PathOfExile 2, do whatever's going to be the most fun for you. I'm going to leave it there. May the Orbs that roll everywhere over your maps and that you have to chase down for ages and start getting more and more annoyed because they just won't stop rolling away from you, may they give you interesting results.